We're going to do some digging here, a lot of digging, which Treasury Secretary Bessent has begun. And look at the hostility that he's met with here on CBS. I'll tell you, he's turning into some kind of assassin. Bessent for the win on this one. Watch him take down this CBS reporter. Check it out.
The president told you, though, this week to look into Somalis who, quote, ripped off that state for billions of dollars. He said they contribute nothing. What exactly are you investigating?
Well, Margaret, to be clear, the initial fraud that was discovered by the IRS, for which I'm the acting commissioner, is discovered by IRS Criminal Investigations Unit. This was not an endogenous thing that the state of Minnesota decided we had to go in and clean up the mess for them, and this is part of the continued cleanup. A lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, and donated to A.G. Ellison, but they've been transferred to something called MBSs. And those are
mortgage-backed security. What do you mean?
They're like
sorry,
wire transfers.
Transferred to what?
These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system, and that money has gone overseas. And we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are.
It's been a week, Margaret, okay? His point is we're investigating it. They had all this money going overseas. That they do know about. So now the question is whether or not any of it was linked to terror. By the way, what's it doing going overseas if it's supposed to feed our kids, for goodness sakes? Oh boy, this is bad.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible. Representative Omar tried to downplay it, said, oh, it was very, it was very tough to know how this money should be used. Yeah. She was gaslighting the American people.
Well, we'll talk to her.
Yeah, but when you come to this country, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on. You got to learn to stop at stop signs, and you got to learn not to defraud the American people.
Whoa! Like I said, Bessent for the win. My gosh, did you see the reporter? She started clicking her papers and everything. She's like trying to move it along, because she doesn't like what he's saying. She really did not like what he was saying at all. Basically, what he said was there was money going overseas. It's these wire transfer company, something like a Western Union, not to pick on them, but like that's the kind of company, right, that you would use to transfer money. Well, that comes under the jurisdiction of the Treasury Department as well as the IRS. And so what are they going to do? They're going to look at all of that money that went, and we could be talking about billions of dollars that went overseas instead of feeding our future, feeding our kids. Wow. Wow, wow. Well, Ilhan Omar is off her rocker. And by the way, so is the reporter, because they seem to have forgotten this little thing that happened along the way, which was that a campaign staffer, I want you to remember this before we watch the soundbite, okay? This guy, Guhad Hashi Saeed, he and Omar together, you see the picture of them, back in happier days, you see, because Mr. Saeed was convicted of having taken something like $3 million from this. Remember that, because what did Bessent just say? Well, we have evidence that some people involved in her campaigns, a staffer, actually was misusing these funds. And it's like that never even happened as far as Ilhan and the reporter are concerned. Watch.
I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously...
Excuse me. Let's go back and play that again. We know that Mr. Saeed has been convicted of having stolen millions of dollars. So let's play again. Apparently the reporter forgot that, or she missed that news flash, which came out on Friday.
I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Ag asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
Yeah, your time was up, right, lady? Okay, so Ilhan Omar staffer pleads guilty in fraud case. Apparently, CBS didn't realize that. That was actually 2 months ago that he pled guilty. This is, as I said, his picture there. She's been implicated with a lot of people. A lot of these fraudsters like to take selfies with her. Again, one of the fraudsters and she were together on election night because when she won, where did she choose to have her party? At his restaurant.
All right, this news just breaking moments ago. Fox News has obtained photos of one of the Somali illegal immigrants wrapped up in the Minnesota fraud scandal, posing with several high-profile Minnesota Democrats, including Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz. The man pictured is Abdul Dahir Ibrahim. He entered the country in 2000 and has had an order for removal since 2004. He also has a prior conviction in Canada for asylum and welfare fraud. ICE tells Fox News Ibrahim was granted temporary protected status for 10 years, but should have never been eligible.
No, definitely not. Here's the bill that she introduced. I want you to take a good look at this one, guys. It was HR 6187, and guess whose name is very much at the top of it? This is to allow the Secretary of Agriculture to grant certain waivers under the Russell National School Lunch Act to address school closures due to COVID-19. So this is the thing that basically gave them the funding in order to have Feeding Our Future, which then turned into a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar estimates of up to $8 billion, could be even higher, scheme to basically defraud U.S. taxpayers, the largest perhaps in history. Ilhan Omar really, I think having to deal with some consequences in the here and now. One would hope that the investigation goes right straight back to her, because how much money was she getting from all of these people in terms of campaign donations? Right now, it's somewhere in the $7,000 range, so not that significant. But was there something else going on? I mean, it's kind of interesting. The woman's net worth has skyrocketed from $200,000 to $30 million in the last year or so. I guess that's because the hubby has his little political consulting business, of which, by the way, he consults for her. So her campaign pays him. I mean, just once again, another one of the many sort of sketchy things about this woman. Let's go to the Fox report on it here.
Tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
Yeah, okay. So $12 million would be a lot, right? And it's like when she was on there with Margaret Brennan on CBS, and the Treasury Secretary just mentioned this. It's like both she and Margaret chose to have amnesia about everything. I guess this is the picture of another one of the guys. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, multi arrests. 79 people have been implicated in this. 60 of them were from her district. Meanwhile, you've got her telling falsehoods, if you ask me, trying to pretend like the guy didn't work for her own campaign. But should we be surprised? I mean, heck, she thinks we're all stupid. We're all just stupid. You know what, Americans? She told us as much.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people, because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get Trump presidency again.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So guys, who's stupid now? Okay. Like she's obviously pretty stupid for hooking up with the wrong kind of people. 60 out of 79 fraudsters, all from her district, which leads us to a whole slew of other questions.